Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Randy. I'm the Managing Director for Leading with Success, among other things. So I'm so excited to be co hosting this event. But more so, I'm more excited to be in the presence of industry leaders, which we'll be introducing shortly.
Good afternoon, Randy. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alvin. So I'm the startup program lead for Leading with the Success. And we are so excited to have this panel of discussion with the startup founders that I know, whom I've worked with. As you all know, startup world is very near and dear to my heart. So on that note, I'd like to welcome everybody to our program this afternoon entitled Leading with Success, leading your startup to success, a founder's tell all.
Wow, awesome. So, to all our listeners and viewers, so open your mind and absorb as much as you can because our guests are the best of the best from a startup perspective. And that's not lip service at all. So, Alvin, what are we waiting for? Let's introduce our esteemed guest speakers today.
Okay, so our first speaker is the founder, of course, of Leading with Success and is a self described serial entrepreneur. A big virtual applause, please, for Bonnie Factor.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel. They will probably share the topic later, like what they shared. I'm Bonnie, and this is my team with Leading with Success. This is our community event. We're very excited for this panel. We are joined by other founders and CEOs as well in the startup community, and we're very excited to begin.
All right. Thanks for that, Bonnie. Next up, an educator and an entrepreneur by heart. He founded the aptly named Startup Village, which aims to continue their advocacy of helping the next generation of entrepreneurs and startups. A big virtual applause to Carlo Calimon.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. Honored to be invited to be one of your panelists for this particular session. Thank you to Bonnie, to Randy, and Alvin for having me. Excited for our upcoming conversation. So let's get started soon.
Let's get started.
Thanks, Carlo. So our next panelist is an MIT alumni and a veteran of the Silicon Valley. He is the CEO and founder of MyGolana, who is advocating its vision to have a more emotionally healthy planet. Give it up for Mr. Lawrence Wang.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm very happy to join you today and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful event.
Thanks for that, Lawrence. All right. Our next guest, this university professor turned entrepreneur, has led the way with Senti AI and is now the Philippines' leading artificial intelligence company. I'm very pleased to introduce Ralph Regalado.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. A pleasure to be here and looking forward to having this fun discussion and learning with you guys.
Thanks for that. So again, Alvin and I are so honored to have everyone join us today. So since this is Founders Tell All, let's get to our first and most obvious question. So to everybody, tell us about your startup journey. How did you come up with the idea? Can you share the origins of how your own startups came to be?
Maybe we can start with Carlo. I see a big smile on your face.
No, I was smiling because I was going to ask which one. Right. So I think it started, not necessarily the startup journey, but the entrepreneurial journey started 15 years ago already. Right. Ever since I finished grad school and so on, and I was an advocate for entrepreneurship. So I was teaching, I was going around the country. I've been to Tawi-Tawi just to teach entrepreneurship. I've been privileged to have the experience of teaching under a mango tree, teaching farmers and fisher folk about entrepreneurship. And syempre, I think, what's important with that is that, you learn how to walk the talk, right? So by walking the talk, you're teaching and obviously you learn also in the process and you see opportunities. Some of the irritants that we've had and you convert that into actual businesses. I've had some experience over the years starting up. whether it was with Mobcard, when it started off as Prodigo because of the idea space competition at that time, or it was it because of Startup Village, which we also saw an opportunity to help other startups as well. So at the end of the day, for us, it's more about that vision of really helping improve the entrepreneurial ecosystem around the Philippines and building around that, whether it's through our own journeys as a startup founder or creating this, in this case, the business of startup enabling or startup incubation. So it was more about having that passion to really help people and the vision of really uplifting and finding disruptive startups to help them become bigger and brighter than everybody else. So I think that's how we started with that journey.
Okay. How about you, Lawrence? You're an entrepreneur from the Valley and moving back here in the Philippines. Maybe you can share your startup journey with us.
Yeah, well, just one clarification. I never moved back.
Oh,
It's my first time moving here, so it was a big commitment. And I'll explain to you why I moved from Silicon Valley to Manila. So in Silicon Valley, I was involved with 6 startup companies, 4 of which I founded, had some successes, had some failures. Um, but after my last company, that was back in 2018, I really wanted to take my time and do something besides making gadgets, which is what I used to do, inventing things. I wanted to do something I felt really passionate about and something that can make a positive impact in the world. So I I reached back to my earliest days of my college career, where I was a peer counselor for all 4 years. And my senior year, I was a co-director of the MIT Nightline Peer Counseling Center. And I was very troubled that after all the years that the situation with mental health, instead of improving, had gotten much worse. And one of the most alarming statistics to come out of the World Health Organization is that really it's unfortunately that depression, leading to suicide, is now the second biggest killer of young adults ages 18 to 34. And so that just, I just thought I have to use my skills to try to do what I can in this area. And so I spent a long time, about a year, trying to figure out how to address this issue, how to address the institutional problems that prevent people from getting the help that they need. Because actually solutions do exist, but because of social stigma, accessibility, high cost, people aren't able to find the mental health solutions that would help them. So anyway, I thought I came up with a solution. It was kind of in my head only. And then I realized that the only place I could do this was in Manila. And I was kind of actually surprised myself by this conclusion, but it's actually very logical. I'm an engineer by training. And then I realized that if I really wanted to see this and bring this idea to fruition, I myself would have to move to Manila. And so I did it, because otherwise I didn't think anyone would do anything like My Golana. So I actually arrived here April 2019, acclimated myself, trying to network with people to make my application a reality. Went through the typhoons, earthquakes last year, and then there was the Taal eruption, and then COVID hit. So there were a lot of, besides all the normal startup challenges, there was just this whole adjustment to a new country, a new culture. It's been quite an adventure. But, the silver lining of it was that we actually launched in the first week of March earlier this year. And then 3 weeks later, ECQ hit. But it turned out that My was really needed for COVID, right? Because people have more mental health challenges than ever because of COVID. So I'm happy to say that so it's been 6 months, but uh, we've been able to help thousands of people already, and people are finding out about us through word of mouth, and so we're able to help a lot of people. So we're happy about that.
Thanks for that, Lawrence. Ralph?
Yeah.
Okay. I think kind of relate to what Carlo was able to share a while ago. So I came from an educator background. So I was teaching at De La Salle University Computer Science department for roughly at around 7 years. And I was definitely teaching mobile development and web development, which is completely on a different topic of like entrepreneurship. So I think it came to a time that I need to teach startups and teach technopreneurship. So it's what's called technopreneurship in the classrooms. And I was totally inviting a lot of people since I don't have any knowledge at all. I'm just watching videos about lean startup on Udacity and other courses. I was browsing or benchmarking also topics from abroad, like different schools and how they teach entrepreneurship, merging with technology. So I just like learned it by myself, and it definitely like, reached to a point that it's hard to teach something that you don't know. In which I just invited a lot of founders during that year to join in the class, and then have a talk, discuss what their experiences are, and also like still reached to a point that my knowledge like still limited, so it's kind of hard to give depth into what really it is how to build startups. So I immerse myself, and it's just lucky at some point in time that there's a startup weekend Manila way back in 2013. So that's where I just jumped and joined startup weekend, and that's where the idea started. And prior to that, also, I've been doing a lot of research already on natural language processing, teaching machines how to understand languages. So that's where the initial idea started. And that's the idea that I pitched in Startup Weekend during that time. And eventually we emerged as the winner for that edition. And that's where the journey started. It was a rough journey because like it's the in 2013, speaking about artificial intelligence and machine learning is kind of too technical for others like to understand its components. It's kind of like hard. So we just tried to make it a little bit marketable by aligning it with marketing as a social media listening tool. So that's where it started. That's where the journey started. So yeah, happy to share later some of the discussions, and I hope I was able to like, give a quick background there as to where it came from. Yeah, thank you.
And yes, Bonnie.
For me, I was there was a lot of businesses that I went into, online selling since 2015, and then our first startup, the global e-commerce one, and then coming off of that startup. During my entire career, actually, I've always wondered. So I've always wondered why I'm always called aggressive as a woman. I've always, yeah, I've always been a leader since I was a child. So I don't understand why can men be angry, and then it's okay for men to be angry, but when I show my emotions, there's a lot of feedback. So I said I am going to create a leadership development wherein I would really find out what makes a leader, what makes an organization successful. So that was the beginning of Leading with Success. It's our vision to create more leaders. It's Gen Z are graduating. The vision for Leading with Success is a gamified platform to create more leaders. For Gen Z, they're all engrossed in playing virtual reality games. And we want Leading with Success to be able to show what kind of a leader do we need in the future? What kind of a leader do we need? What's the daily? What's the vision? What strategy do they need? What characteristics do they need? What's the daily habits of a leader that would succeed? And that's how leading with success is born.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. So, you know that the title of this discussion is Founders Tell All. So, I know all of you have been part of a startup, still part of a startup, and plans to create more startups in the future. So, what were your challenges? Putting up your own startup? How were you able to overcome them? And what currently are there still occurring these challenges, and how are you dealing with it? So yeah, how about you, Raf?
Okay, I think just anchoring to my experience starting with Senti, it we have different challenges. I have different challenges for every stages of like growth of the organization. So at first, since I'm relatively a newbie, zero knowledge, don't have any background about building a business. So my first struggle was how to speak business. So since majority of like what I know is like speaking technical terms, and when I talk to business people, they have their own like language. Sometimes they wouldn't be able to understand what I'm saying because I'm too technical. So that's the first challenge that I need to overcome in terms of be able to communicate well and be able to adjust what you're saying and what's in your head to different audiences. And I think it became relevant that communication is critical as entrepreneurs, because you will be encountering different people, right? And you will be talking to investors, you will be talking to people that doesn't know that yet clearly what your idea is, and you need to adjust what you're going to tell. Probably you'll be seeking high level, or at some point you need to be so technical in terms of like how do you do things. So communication was one of the thing that I was able to understand that is needed. Especially when you do pitch, you pitch a lot, right? We've been in different competition. I've been seeing Bonnie constantly. I've been um, Carlo always like invite us to join contests, right? So very critical for me is like communication aspect. And besides that, in terms of being constantly um, understanding what are the new things that you need to improve, because I think as entrepreneur, there's a lot of challenges that would happen and that would resurface every time. So I think being ready for that and be able to be ahead of that is very important. So I usually keep up myself like reading books and just be ready that there will be new challenges. I think at this point in time, one of the challenges that I'm trying to like figure out is like how do you scale a team, right? So if you're going to grow a team from 5 to 35 to 100, there's a lot of challenges there, right? It's like operations. So I think as an entrepreneur, you just need to accept that there will be challenges along the way. So accepting it instead of you being stressed about it is one of the critical point that probably I'll be considering every time as a company grows.
How about you, Carlo?
Well, depending on the stage, like what Ralph said, depending on the stage, there are various challenges. I've had challenges with co-founders, as some of you will already know. I've had horror stories about that. Also, at the same time, it's also about the discovery phase. As entrepreneurs, our minds are always working and always looking for all of these opportunities. But choosing one to really focus on can also be a challenge sometimes. And once you focus on one, it's also being able to put aside all of the other distractions and just focusing can be a challenge on its own. But while you're focusing on that particular idea as well, building it up, right? Trying to develop traction. As Raf mentioned, I've seen him, I've known him for years, even meeting him before he joined all of these other competitions with Unilever and so on. When he was first starting Senti, everybody was just hustling, right? You have this great idea that you feel can really move forward. You're trying to educate the market in terms of how it can be valuable for everybody. But there are times also when you keep on just pushing and pushing, then you hit the wall. Then that's when you have to deal with, the personal stuff, right? Your confidence and trying to manage your your adversity quotients and so on, making sure that it's up to par, and and still keep on fighting on, right? And there are times when it can be a challenge morale wise, because you don't know where it's gonna go, especially here in the Philippines when as we started doing this very early, right? 2012, 2013. I even had a startup way back 2009 and 2007, right? And those experiences, it can take a toll, but battle scars, as we call it, right? We've had battle scars. We learn from the previous ones and try to adapt it to the current one, and you just push forward. And that's the mindset, I guess, right? That regardless of what challenges you encounter, what hurdles you have to go through, you just keep on moving forward. And how do you handle this? I think the scars really build you, right? The knowledge and the wisdom you've gathered over the years, whether it's a success or it's a failure, it contributes to what you are now, right? And that's what we do in Startup Village, right? Basically, what we've learned, we share with others so that, hey, guys, don't go through the same things that we did, right? Maybe it's a way for us to help you so that, you don't have to, encounter the same things, or at least you're better prepared, right? Because the battle scars will still help you. Like Bonnie, with your kids, right? Sometimes you have to let them trip and fall down, right? In order for them to learn that, hey, you're not supposed to do that anymore, right? Same with my kids, and it's the same with your startup. You have to, learn from these mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail because it's a part of you. But at the same time, I think that what allowed us to really progress mentally and physically also is that we kept on talking to people, right? And that's something that a lot of startup founders don't do much, because they're very protective about what's happening. They're very secretive. But for us, we talked to a lot of people and we got their feedback. We got their insights, their mentorship, and so on. And I guess that's also how I met all of you, right? Because at one point or another we cross paths and we talk, and we learn from each other at the same time. So over the years, I think that also contributed to how you survive the rigors and the challenges of being a startup founder, right? It's also being open to collaborate. As you know, we all collaborate a lot. And at the end of the day, I think, it's listening, but more importantly, it's sticking to your vision and your passion, right? At the end of the day, we're wired in a certain way, we're thinking in a certain way, and we need to focus on that particular vision. Also driven by the passion to do and accomplish that vision.
Bonnie, you want to take the next one, before we go to Lawrence?
Sure, the challenges. Well, my daily challenge, I actually posted it in all my social media accounts today. The daily challenge for us in Leading with Success is how do you, it's daily operations really. So so you have a vision, you have your 5-year vision, and you have your strategy to get to the vision. But it's the day-to-day that matters. And then when you drill it down to the hours of the day, right? So is what you're doing in that hour, in that moment, in that day, does it add up? Is it aligned to the strategy? Then is it aligned to the vision? That's what Carlo said. I totally agree. Focusing on the vision daily is the hardest thing, because there's a lot of distractions. How do you eliminate all the distractions so that every moment of the day you're telling yourself, no, this is your vision. This is your vision. Let's continue with your vision and not be distracted. So that's my biggest challenge. It's growth and scale. How do you get there? So that's the biggest challenge of all, at least for us with Leading with Success.
Lawrence, you want to finish it off?
Yeah, sure. I totally understand and can confirm what all the previous speakers said. I guess maybe what I'll summarize as one of the big lessons from starting several companies is, just to be ready for and to expect the unexpected. And what does that mean? It just means that, every day, just realize you have your plans. You have your daily plans, your monthly plans, your 5-year plan, but every day, something that you totally did not expect might happen. So you need to be kind of just emotionally and mentally ready for that things, so that you don't let it get you down. Just understand that's part of the normal process for starting a company. And some of these unexpected challenges might seem very serious and get you down, but they're going to be there. Things you can't even imagine will come up, and then you'll find a solution, you'll find a workaround, you'll survive. um, like any startup, everything is challenging, right? It's getting the team together, finding those few key co-founders, the business formation, the legal, accounting, etc., the technical aspects. For us, it's counseling. So we also had to hire counselors, raising money. And for me, the additional challenge was just trying to do this here in the Philippines, because all my network is in the US. And so I'm used to doing everything there and doing it quickly. I know who to go to, but here I kind of basically had to rebuild my network and learn how to do these things from scratch here in the Philippines. And the business and the social culture are different, right? So it's not just doing it, but how to do it. What is the proper way to do things? There's everything. I just said every day was an adventure, right? And you learn. And I decided to really just also enjoy the journey to like all the differences, to appreciate the differences, and to just see it as like having this experience in this wonderful new country. So yeah. Just have resilience. We talk a lot about that for counseling, right? That how do you learn to be resilient? And then for startups, you really need to be resilient. Thank you.
So, Lawrence, just to follow up on that. So, since you said you started in Silicon Valley, how difficult was it when you transferred here, trying to build up a business that you don't know the processes of Philippine government, etc.? Can you share something about that?
Sure. I mean, one thing is like I didn't know very many people, so initially I met some people, and I met the wrong people. To be honest, nothing against the Philippines, but I had bad luck. I met some wrong people.
It's okay. It's okay, Lawrence. If it's still against the Philippines, it's also okay.
But, right. I kept going, and I didn't end up meeting the right people. And some of these people I met later turned out to be fantastic. Some of the best, honestly, some of the best people I've ever met in my whole life. And I really now count on these few trusted advisors to help guide me, through all the permits, the things with the SEC, even the extra challenges like just dealing with all my visa issues, right? Because I'm a foreigner, things like that. Banking. I found that the banking system here in the Philippines is much different from the US. So a lot of the things you just take for granted you have to make a lot of adjustments, right? Yeah.
Thanks for that, Lawrence. And I believe Ralph will add something that he remembered.
Yeah. I just remembered something like early days of starting Senti. One of the things that I struggled with first is like managing money. I remember during the first year of Senti, like we actually get an office at Cubao. Like there's no people there. It's just like fancy to have an office, but it's like burning a lot of things. So I think this is one of the very critical things, especially for early entrepreneur, that to manage money, given that you have limited resources, where to get it, how to manage it. Very critical that you will be struggling with money. That's the reality of things. And another one is like managing relationship. I think Lawrence was able to highlight some of that. And these relationships could be, once you build, for example, business with your friends, and you weren't able to clear about expectations and commitments, sometimes it would definitely like have struggles doing all of those commitments.
Yes.
And definitely would remove that friendship or yeah, friendship over, for example. And besides that is yun yeah. I think I also experienced early stage that I'm not keen on like writing commitments on legal paper. So I have an experience like one investor committing to us and leaving us with nothing. So I need to like retrench a lot of people because we don't have something to pay. So I think those are the first few things and struggles that I encounter, like managing money at the same point, managing relationship, and be able to handle that and constantly like reminding myself to learn from that and move on to new challenges moving forward. Yep.
Thanks for that, Ralph. All right, let's move on to the next question. And I believe Lawrence has touched on this already. We're actually in the middle of an unprecedented event in our lifetime, which is this COVID-19 pandemic. So, as from your perspectives, how has this pandemic changed the landscape of startups? Be it you have an existing one, or maybe starting to think of starting one. So, how has this pandemic changed it? Lawrence, maybe you can start us off with this one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in our case, no, mental health was already a global epidemic before the pandemic. The World Health Organization had already identified mental health as the leading cause of disability worldwide. It's not anything physical, it's mental health, actually, leading cause of disability. And then the pandemic just made it worse, right? And I was mentioning how it really impacted young people, especially. So, again, this is where the flexibility and the resilience really comes in. Uh, like I said, we launched the first week, March 4th, and then a few weeks later, as you all remember, went into ECQ. And I didn't even know what ECQ was. Someone had to explain it. I was like, "What's happened?" I don't mean, what's happening? It was very funny. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, but in that case, it really helped to be an online business. It helped that we were already trying to address people's needs and mental health, which was going to be needed even more, right, because of the pandemic. And we just had to find the flexibility to, go through the cycles of the pandemic, ECQ to GCQ. So, like, one of the difficulties, it's hard to meet up with people, right? So you're having to do a lot more business through Zoom or something. And that's especially challenging. Like if you're trying to raise money, like how does an investor, how do you build up trust with people through Zoom? It's very difficult. And then this whole thing about work from home, again, that involves trust. We moved all our employees to working from home and had to kind of just, really coach them on how to make a professional Zoom environment, so that when they do their counseling online, that they look professional, sound professional, like all these issues, right? So uh, I think for startups, if you're not online, then you need to reinvent your business model. So like if you're a restaurant, think about going to takeaway, right? Takeaway will become the primary revenue generator for you, not dine in. So every business has to rethink their business model. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. So how about you, Bon? How does this pandemic changed or help your startup in leading with success?
It was very surprising. So we're for leading with success, the first strategy was just to be a training company. That's the first strategy that we have, right? I've been doing online training since 2017. So when the pandemic happened, there were companies with training budgets who didn't know who to talk to. And some of the biggest training companies are dinosaurs. They just specializes in face to face. And the HR heads that I am friends with, they don't know who to talk to for online training. And since they know that I've been doing online training since 2017, suddenly there's this opportunity for leading with success to be a digital training company. Suddenly we had a chance. We had a huge chance against the training giants who are huge. Like they have the huge training names. And I was really surprised by this. And so we explored it. And I'm again surprised that now our business is validated. So the next challenge is really growth and scale. And how do you do tech? That's the if you're not a tech person, the next challenge is, so how do you transfer this to tech? Because you can do online, but you cannot do manual online forever. How do you now? How do you platform this? I'm sure everyone from brick and mortar, everyone from the manual businesses are now thinking the same thing. So how do you now do this in a platform? How do you create a digital version of your manual business processes? So that's how the pandemic changed us. It's an opportunity.
Okay, thanks, Bonnie. So let's talk about, we earlier we talked about challenges. I want to talk about failure. So putting up or building your own startup is a big risk, right? So, and you as CEOs and founders of your own startups, you jumped to that entrepreneurial or startup journey, um, taking all the risk. So you've had these challenges, you've had successes, you've had failures, but I want to understand that how does these failures that you've overcome, you've have experienced, um, affected you as a person and as an entrepreneur? Maybe let's start with Carlos, since you've mentioned earlier that you've had a lot of startups already. Some made it, some did not, and now as the founder of Startup Village, who wants to help entrepreneurs build their businesses. So yeah, can you share about that?
Sure. Well, for me, well, like what I said, right? The failures become battle scars, right? And at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about these failures. It happens. It's just being accepting of these failures and thinking about it from a more positive perspective. I know, especially here in the Philippines, right? Failure is frowned upon, and people don't really talk about their failures. But at the end of the day, if you're from the startup scene, especially Lawrence can attest to this, especially in Silicon Valley, failure is accepted openly for as long as you learn from it, right? And for as long as the mistake or the failure isn't as big as you would have thought, that you cannot bounce back from it. But you have to be accepting of it, accepting the fact that it is going to happen, it's going to continue to happen, especially since you're still discovering, right? That's the nice thing about the process of discovery. It's really going to lead you towards failure and making mistakes, but you just have to learn how to deal with it and learn from it. And at the same time, obviously, when you do the next one, right? Since you have deep scar already, you know that you're not going to do that again. But I think also from a mentality perspective, right? So I think, Lawrence, we're going to need your help sometimes. We have with My Golana, especially for startup founders. It's also accepting that you cannot control everything, right? We all have this linear way of saying that, hey, this is how we're going to succeed, but it's never going to be a straight line. There's always going to be crooks, bumps along the way. There's going to be ups and downs, right? And you just have to roll with it, right? Especially with what happens in life. There are times when you're up. It's true. When things are going well, you're bound to go back to the ground, right? But it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to stick there or you want to bounce back up. But what's important really is to really embrace it, right? And make sure that mentally you're saying, oh, it's okay. We learn from it. We move on. Don't dwell on it too much. We move on to the next one and the next one and the next one. But at the same time, don't be afraid to share that experience with others so that they know also what to do when they encounter it. And I think, not for anything, but I think that's the thing with what entrepreneurs do, right? To a certain degree, we are considered as pathfinders, or we pave the way for other groups. Why? Because, we're always at the front. We're the ones who learn, and then we need to make sure it trickles down to the next ones and the next ones and the next ones. But we have to accept that role. Especially with us in Startup Village, that's the path that we wanted to take. We're taking risks. but we're taking calculated risks, and we learn. At the same time, we're open as well to all of these changes that are happening to us. So, but I think it's more really accepting what you can and cannot control. So, thank you.
Thanks, Carlo. Yeah, thanks, Carlo. Ralph, how about you? Any insights from your side?
Yeah, I think it's definitely understandable if people are afraid of failure, given that probably they're coming from backgrounds that they don't. If they're going to risk their money, probably their family will not be fed. So I think it's a matter of trying to figure out if there's a way to balance everything. I think Carlo was able to like raise the context behind like calculated risk. I think my story is like I don't have like a huge safety net, right? If I fail, definitely I need to like start from ground. Even at this point, like I need to probably apply if we fail as a company, I need to apply again for a new job. So I think even for starters, sometimes they don't have that huge money that they can like restart again. Sometimes they will like do a complete risk. So it's definitely on my side. I did a calculated risk. So what I did was I'm on a professional leave at the academy that time, and it's a way for me to explore. I just need to check like entrepreneurship and see since I'm on the professional leave for a year, maybe I can explore that and see what's going to happen. And unfortunately, I was like sharing that a while ago that we left in the open by that investor. So definitely I have no money for almost 6 months that I need to like look for other job. And it was like a struggle experience for me back in 2016 because it's hard. I was literally crying overnight because I care about my people and I can't do anything about it. And I just need to like face the fact that I need to let go of the people and I need to like start again from scratch. And that's why I was keen on still like continue to try on things and continue to build it. So I just look for other jobs and look for I think at some point in time 2017 I had 3 jobs and I'm still doing Senti just to keep myself afloat and pay all the bills. And I was just lucky at some point in time that the government opened an opportunity to grant or provide grants for startup, and luckily we were got in. And I think that was the time for me to take the jump from teaching to actually doing it completely full time. So it was just for me a calculated risk, not totally like risking it all. So it's relatively up to you where you feel comfortable at. And yeah, that for me is one of the thing that because sometimes people tend to have a misconception about like risking that you need to risk everything. So it's relatively up to you as to like what risk level you would want to jump into. And yeah.
Okay. So thanks, Carlo and Ralph. So just a quick question. Bonnie, you as a women founder, was it
Yeah.
hard for you to, how do you call that, penetrate the startup community, being a technology entrepreneur? Would you consider, is it a challenge for you, or would you took it as a, how do you call it? Because in the context of technology entrepreneurs, it's usually a male world, right? So have you had any challenges being a woman founder? You felt that it was what do you call that, something that pulled you down, to that extent that people look at you differently?
In the startup community and in the startup world, whether here in the Philippines or in the international community, there's actually women actually have a lot of advantage because there's not a lot of women leaders out there. So if you're a woman founder, go use it to your advantage. Take advantage of all of the offerings for women leaders out there. So there's so many really. And the best the best part is because we're women, we're so used to asking for help. So that's actually how I was able to leverage all of it. Yeah, we're so used to asking for help. It's always, hey, do you know our startup is like this? And do you want to help us? Is there something that we can do for you? Is there something that you can do for us? So I have always been in my previous startup, the connector. That's what they call me. Yeah. The only pitfall as a woman leader that I have was when, because all of my co-founders were men, they all have the same values as men. So because they all have the same values as men, when we when there's conflict, the woman is the emotional one. The men are the logical ones. So that's the only disadvantage that I saw. If you have different values already, that's when you say, this is no longer my values. Maybe it's time, you know. The discovery phase. That's what Carlos said. It's then you discover maybe maybe we're no longer fit to be together because our values are no longer a match.
Thanks for that, Bonnie. Okay. Moving on. Starting is one thing, starting your business, but sustaining it is another. So, what are your key techniques and some of your best practices personally that you did to make sure that the ship won't sink, so to speak? Lawrence,
Yeah, I actually wanted to make a comment about the last question.
go ahead.
just I just want to say, if you can survive it, failure is actually great. You learn the most about yourself from failure. You learn the most about others in failure. And if you think about it, failure positions you for future success if you let it. And as other people noted, most people are risk adverse, and if you fail, they'll tell you, "Oh, I told you so. I knew I was never going to make it." But they're not risk takers like you, so you can ignore that. Like where I'm from in Silicon Valley, it's considered a real badge of honor to fail because they've learned these lessons. A lot of venture capitalists will not invest in anyone there unless they know that you have failed, that you've experienced, the sting of failure, because they think that makes you a better business entrepreneur. And the last thing I just want to say is that, one of my best hires so far here in the Philippines was someone that started their own company and failed. And when he told me his story, I said, "That's great." And he was like so shocked. He goes, "Why? Why is that great?" I said, "Because I know you know what it feels like to fail. You know how hard it is to do a startup. So you'll be ready for the challenges." So he's been one of my best hires so far. It's been fantastic. Okay, for this question, there's a lot of advice and people can give, but the two things I'll mention is, again, I learned this from Silicon Valley. Cash is king. Cash is king. So you can have all kinds of problems, this and that, HR or something, but if you're having cash troubles, that's a real trouble. So learning to watch and manage your cash flow is number one. You got to prioritize all the tasks you do around that. So it means focusing on both revenue generation and then also raising funding, because they both have to do with cash flow. So related to that is every day prioritize and make sure your team knows what the priority are every day. And maybe don't change, but make sure every day people are focused, because people can get very easily distracted, right? They get 100 emails every day asking them to do this or that. But it's very, very important to keep focused and clearly identify what the priorities every day. And there shouldn't be more than 3. You cannot have 10 number one priorities, So just be really clear with your team what are the top 3 things that they need to do today. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, who wants to take the next one? Ralph, maybe?
Yeah, I think besides the cash flow, as what Lawrence already shared, so I think one of the things that I constantly keeping to sustain in terms of our continuous growth is to constantly revisit yourself if you still fit to be the leader of the organization. So I think sometimes if you have limited knowledge, you probably hit on a point that I don't know what to improve. I don't know which part to improve in the organization. Will it be improving or getting the right people? It's more of like making sure that you continuously like learn and continuously grow yourself by assessing what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and you can do that by talking to a lot of people in the organization. Could be your peers, could be people within, and just making sure that you still are the person that you still fit to be the leader that your company needs. And I think it's very hard to maintain and sustain that, because as the company grows, it would have different challenges and issues that you would be encountering. Besides that, is you for my side, I need to also like revisit what is our organization strength and weaknesses. We need to see if we're still delivering value not only for our customers but also making sure that our people are growing their career with us. So I'm very a people person. So I love to listen to a lot of a lot of our employees, what are their thoughts about on how they've seen the organization from growing, because sometimes you get all of those ideas coming from them. They have this idea that you started with your own vision, right? But they already have carried the vision with you, and they have new ways of improving the business. So for me, keeping that constant listening to everyone and making sure that their thoughts are heard across the organization, it's still critical and in place, because sometimes they have the best ideas to solve a certain issue. You just need to like talk to them. And I think one thing is to constantly keeping the team aligned. So constant communication, especially in the time of pandemic, right, in which you don't see all of them into one place. We have a lot of like employees that started working with us during the pandemic that we didn't see in actual person, right? We just see them in front of a screen. So making sure that you constantly communicate with what the directions of the organization is, where you are being transparent with that is critical for them to understand why are the decisions made this way, why not that way. So keeping the context and communication open is very critical.
How about you, Carlo?
I agree with both Lawrence and Ralph. And I just want to add to the fact to that is that at least for us, what we also try to do is we try to pass on the entrepreneurial mindset also to our employees as well, right? Simply because we've always, when we began Startup Village or even the other organizations that we started, it was passing on that that mindset to everybody else, right? It can be challenging also because they may not be wired that way, but it's something that we can learn, and we wanted to make sure that everybody has that mindset, so that everybody, especially during these challenging times, right? We have everybody's buy-in, right? We try to make sure that they understand the rules. We're transparent also with what's going on, and I think that's what also Ralph was saying in terms of communication. Being transparent is very important, but more importantly, you give them the opportunity to also step up, right? By having that mindset and understanding that hey, we're entrepreneurs. This is part of the journey, right? Join us in this journey, and we'll give you a chance to also execute, to also think about being an entrepreneur yourself or having that entrepreneurial mindset and applying it to your respective functions or your respective jobs. I think that that's one of the things that we have to think about. But another thing also is being open to change, right? Because especially with these times, right? Like what I said earlier, it's not a straight line, never is. But when you encounter situations such as these, right, you have to be open to changing direction, right? As the saying goes, right? Pivot or perish. But the challenge with us entrepreneurs, admittedly, we can be very, very stubborn, right? We can be very bull stubborn actually, because we believe in this. You have that mindset, and this is what you want to do, and so on and so forth. But sometimes we're really just pushing against the wall, right? And it's not working, but we still push, right? So there's a stubbornness to it, which goes back to the point wherein we really have to be open to change, right? To shifting that direction, and that's part of actually being an entrepreneur, right? Being open to disruption, being open to you being a disruptor, but also be open to you being disrupted yourself, So therefore, you need to be more flexible in that sense, right? And being open to that change that can happen at any time, especially in this young organization. But as we know, because we are a startup, we have a little bit more flexibility in adapting, unlike in comparison to the more, the dinosaurs, quote unquote, that are out there that are too big and too not so nimble anymore, right? So yeah, I think that, that's my contribution to this question.
Bonnie, you want to finish it off?
It's I agree with Ralph, the listening to your team. Because you have a vision, but you're not the only one who's going to carry that out. If you don't listen to your team, then why do you have a team? So I really believe in that. When Ralph said, "What are your limitations? What are your weaknesses?" so that you would know, and I'm very attuned to that because, and that's the reason why I have you, Randy and Alvin, because I have people who compliments me, because if I am the best in everything, then it's not a good organization because then why do you have an organization if you're the best at everything and you're no longer going to learn anything? So when I listen to my team, I realize a lot of the things that we need to do. There's a lot of questions that pops up, and most of it really makes me. It actually inspires me. It motivates me to. So how do I serve the team, the client, and the vision? So those three questions. How do you do that now? That's the best question maybe that I can ask.
Okay, thank you. You've talked about listening, sharing the same vision, having that alignment with your team. So my question is, as startup founders, as leaders in your own companies, what do you think are the top three traits that an entrepreneur must have and say that I think I have these characteristics and that will help me become a successful CEO, a successful startup founder? Let's start with Carlo.
Okay, I think to a certain degree, I'll try to separate being a successful startup founder versus a successful CEO, right? Because these can be two different things, right? But I'll just focus on saying how do you become a successful startup founder. I think first and foremost is that you should have that vision, as I mentioned earlier, right? You should have that vision of being able to disrupt things, or at the very least make things better than they were before. My favorite definition of what an entrepreneur is very simple. He paves the way. He sees he sees something that nobody else has seen before, right? And creates something new and something disruptive, or he innovates, right? And having that visionary mindset is one thing that a startup entrepreneur has. But take note, when I mention this, the startup founder is not thinking about the money. He's thinking about how I can make things better for somebody else. I just want to solve this particular problem. And it just so happened, I found this solution. Then the money will come in later, because that's when you start thinking about more like a CEO. Okay, how do I sustain this? How do I grow this? And so on. But initially, as a startup founder, you have to have that mentality. Second, I think that you should have passion for what you're doing. Why? Because the journey is tough, right? It is excruciatingly tough sometimes. That's why, I never realized how high my adversity quotient is until I'm doing this, right? Because you get tested over and over again, right? That's why I said, Lawrence, I may need to talk to you after, right? But in essence, right, your adversity quotient, it comes out, right? You see how resilient you can become. But that is not driven just because that's your personality. It's driven because you have passion to get something done. And it goes back and aligns to your vision, right? And I think those are the top two things that would make a successful startup founder. And third is, I think that you have to acknowledge also as a startup founder that you cannot do everything yourself. I think it's a major thing, because the others, knowledge about finance, knowledge about marketing, and so on. Those are one thing, but it's also being a team player in that sense, that you cannot do things by yourself, right? And by doing so, you also attract people, right, that can help you with the journey, because you cannot do it alone, right? So I think that it contributes to the achieving, being able to achieve the vision, executing and making sure that you're passionate about it, because it is a challenging thing, but at the same time recognizing that you cannot do it yourself. So I think those are the three things that I would like to highlight.
From a woman's perspective, Bonnie, what are the three traits that you would think makes a successful
Really, first,
entrepreneur?
yeah. First of all, you really need to be a problem solver. Especially if you want to start a startup, think of all the problems that you hate in the Philippines, all of the problems that you're ranting about in the Philippines, and create a solution for it. You now have a vision. So that's number one, problem solver. You really need to want to solve that problem. Number two, once you have the solution, that becomes your vision. And that's right, I agree with Carlo. You need to be a vision maker. Because if you cannot describe what your vision looks like, what your end goal looks like, you cannot have people join you. You need to be able to picture it, imagine it together with the people who wants to join you. And the last one would be leader creator. Because I agree with Carlo, a startup founder doesn't need to be the CEO. And I start a lot of things, and my end goal is not for me to end up, it's Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. They're one of a kind who stays there and ends there. I love starting things, and I want my company to stay, not me. It's not the vision is to continue helping people. The vision is to be able to have that solution out there solving things. It's not about me. So problem solver, because there will always be a problem, vision maker, and then leader creator.
Thanks, Bonnie. Ralph?
Yeah, I think from our side, the three traits that for me would lead to becoming a successful entrepreneur. I'm not successful, so I cannot like quite sure mention like what will be those traits. But I think what I have been seeing that I constantly honing to myself is like leadership. So I think people always like think that leadership cannot be honed. And leadership is automatically associated to being an entrepreneur. That you're already automatically a leader. If you're doing management, you're already automatically a leader. But it's a completely separate characteristic in itself that can still be continuously honed. So I think that's one of the aspects that, for me, is still continuously that would be needed for entrepreneurs, especially if you're going to lead a huge team. How do you navigate? How do you able to balance all of those expectations from you from different people, right? So if you're managing a small team, how do you drive them? How do you bring them to live by your mission? So there's a lot of like aspects onto it that comprises to becoming a leader. And I think one of the trait that still is needed is to learn to recognize what your values and stick to that values. And sticking to that values is also challenging, especially if you're going to grow a team. How do you grow transparency starting from you to growing a team itself? How do you bring that to your organization aspect? So be able to sticking to your values and identifying what values is relevant to you would be critical, because you will a lot of us actually group together based on values, right? So be able to understand that would matter. And for me, being an infinite learner, constantly learning is for me um, is a trait and a characteristic that needs to be constantly honed. So you need to constantly read books. You need to learn a lot of things. There's new. I constantly like, learn a lot of books because a lot of books tell stories about Silicon Valley failures and being able to recognize all of that and understand how people are actually dealing with all of those challenges. Listening to founder stories, also sometimes pag may chika-chika with some of the fellow peers in the startup community, so being able to like learn from their stories also is very critical for someone who's building ideas about startup and ideas revolving how they can navigate towards this rough seas of being an entrepreneur itself. So I think those are the three things for me that I value most: being an entrepreneur and being a constantly growing entrepreneur. Yeah.
Thanks, Ralph. How about you, Lawrence? Coming from Silicon Valley and now here in the Philippines, have you changed the three traits that you have in mind back in the valley? Has it changed that now that you're based, that you're here in the Philippines with Maigolana?
Yeah. So I think the previous speakers touched on a lot of important traits. What I would like to say about the subject is that uh, people are always looking for role models, right? And unfortunately, I think some of the most famous entrepreneurs that are in the media are the people that tend to be like characters, right? They have very strong personalities. They're type A, meaning aggressive. They're ruthless, cutthroat, even. And so a lot of young people say, oh, that's what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. I would like to say that's definitely not true. There's a lot of successful entrepreneurs actually come in all types of stripes and flavors, just as there are different kinds of leaders in general, right? And leadership styles. We have women politicians, women leaders, and men. So you can be successful different ways. I think the key thing for me is it really helps to have self-awareness because, as I think Bonnie was mentioning, it really helps to know, what you're good at and what you're not. So you might be the inventor type, you might be the passionate type, you might be the visionary type. Whatever type you are, that's great. Be who you are. Embrace it. But also be aware of what you might not be good at, what your blind spots are. And then, as someone else said, be flexible enough to hire or find co-founders who can complement you. So that flexibility, I think, is really super important. So if you're not really good at the day-to-day stuff, like I was saying, you're not really good at managing cash or setting priorities, find someone who is, and you can be more the visionary. Or if you're a great inventor, focus on that. Do your inventing, the CTO or whatever you want to be, but then find other people who are good at the selling, right? Because maybe you're not a natural salesperson either. So I think I would say, someone mentioned passion, which is very true, resilience, but I would just add in, the self-awareness as being very important. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Lawrence. Very inquisitive. There's a lot of insights that I'm very excited of. So to our viewers, again, you're lucky to have the best of the best in the industry. So next question, you guys were saying that passion and vision go hand in hand. So with your own respective startups, what kind of impact would you like to have? What type of legacy would you want to be remembered with? Let's start with Bonnie.
For us, since the vision is to be a gamified leadership platform, I would want Gen Z to be able to say, I learned leadership while playing this game, or I learned the pitfalls of leadership and not having the same values as my team, or being able to traverse conflict while in this app. So that's the legacy that's the long term, that's the end goal for vision for leading with success. That's, it's Gen Z. Gen Z, who are they looking up to for leadership? Right now it's election month. We don't know as we are recording this, we don't know who's going to be
Too close to call.
too close to call. And so that's That's what we want. That's the legacy that we want. What are the characteristics of a leader? Everyone is hooked in games at the moment, especially that generation. These are my college students. They're graduating very soon. Where do they learn leadership? It's, that's the only way. The only way you're going to be able to make them learn is to have a gamified platform for leadership.
Lawrence, you want to take this one?
Sure. My Galana, as was mentioned previously, we're trying to address the mental health issue. And so, by definition, we are a social good enterprise. So, one piece of our mission is we're trying to do well by doing good and kind of prove to people that, you don't have to be this cutthroat, aggressive business to do well. So that's one aspect. The other one is that, because of my really close friends, we're really trying to transform and educate about the startup ecosystem right here in the Philippines. We're trying to give back. So we're trying to give back to the community in terms of, how does this venture space work? How do startups work? How do you partner with the universities? So in Silicon Valley, those are the key ingredients, right? Just a strong relationships between the companies and their employees, with universities and with the venture community, all have to be coexist and supporting each other to have a healthy startup ecosystem. So for one thing, like we're doing, like Silicon Valley, we give all our employees stock options so that every employee is a part owner in the company. And then, we're trying to educate them about, well, what's so good about stock options? What does it mean? How do they work? So there's a lot of education that goes into it. So it's not just about the business, but just giving back to the community. And I really hope that if we have any kind of legacy or impact, positive impact, it's that people are able to judge us on those things as well. Thank you.
Ralph?
I think from our side at Senti, where do we wanna leave a legacy? There's a lot of things that I wanna be talk about or leave a legacy with. But I think one of the first things is like to be able to be known in the region as one of the leading AI company, and on the enterprise side, that is relatively our vision, growing the organization itself. And it's not just like us, the company itself. When you talk about AI, probably you will not be talking about Philippines, right? You will be talking about probably China or China, US, or some countries in the UK, not relatively Philippines. And we've been receiving a lot of that first impression that they're gonna shock us as an AI company like that in the Philippines, that we're doing some unique things, and we want to be seen that way, that Filipinos itself has a unique capacity and has a unique characteristic, and we can actually compete side by side with different countries. So that's what we want to try to bring out, not just only pushing AI innovations in the country, but uplifting talents of the Filipinos that were relatively different, were relatively skilled, and we can compete side by side with other organizations out there.
Carlo?
Right. So for us, I think, it's aligned with our vision also, of just simply being able to, put the Philippines on the map, right? Especially in terms of startups and so on. And we want to be able to be a contributor to that. We may not necessarily be the one to find the next unicorn, though that's always a dream. But we are more than happy to find many Davids or a lot of stallions in the process that would help put the Philippines on the map. So we're very happy with that. For as long as we're able to find and support the next generation of disruptors, especially those who are coming from other areas around the Philippines. The Philippines is more than Metro Manila, Metro Cebu, Metro Davao, and so on. Based on my experience, I just want to give everybody equal opportunity, equal chance to be as successful as everybody else. I want to be able to discover the next successful entrepreneur coming from a public school somewhere, right? Because in my experience, I've seen great minds. I've attended all of these events, done so many pitches, taught so many people, and I'm always sad that when I come back to these provinces, they disappear. Right? Why? Because realities of life will kick in, and they're now forced back to being employed, not being able to get the chance to execute that great idea that they've had. Why? Simply because the resources or the connections are not available in their respective provinces. So for me, being able to level the playing field to a certain degree would be a great way for me to be remembered. But to me, being remembered in that fashion isn't really as important as the impact that we're trying to create for Filipinos and for Filipinos to be recognized in the region. So, yeah, that's it for me.
Okay. So, having heard all of your challenges, having heard of your visions and all these traits of a successful entrepreneur, can you guys share what would be your advice if you meet somebody who tells you and comes up to you and say, I'm thinking of building my own startup? What would you tell that person based on your experiences as a startup founder? Um, Maybe we can start with
I
Ralph.
think this is a common statement that I always do if I ask that question. It's to always understand and recognize your whys. Why you're doing it, who is it for, and what's the main reason of you doing and traversing this journey of entrepreneurship. Because understanding it would definitely be helpful for you in times of challenges along the road that in some point that you want to let go because there's a major hiccup or there's a major roadblock that happened in that phase of in your startup journey. So being able to have that strong understanding of your why would help you realize why are you doing this, who is it for, and it would definitely help you in your journey, in this entrepreneurship journey that we will be working with.
Okay. Thanks, Ralph, for that very insightful advice. And how about you, Bon?
For me, once you remove your fear of failure and the embarrassment to the failure, you've already won, because the decisions that you will make will no longer be based on fear. It will totally be based on choices. And choices are, knowing that you have choices is a very powerful mental state, and it's a resourceful being. Knowing that you always have choices at any point in time of your life, you're already in a very resourceful state. So it's, if your motivation is not to fail, then it's going to be very hard for you. You won't be able to sleep at night. But if you're, but if but if you're thinking, what are my choices, then you've already won.
Very well said, Bonnie. How about you, Carlo?
My advice, the first thing I will tell an aspiring startup is, are you sure? No, I'm kidding. What do you call this? No, I think, but what I agree with what Ralph said and what Bonnie said, but I will just add on to it by saying, enjoy the ride. All right, enjoy the ride. I think that people get too stressed, focus on the money, focus on fundraising and all of these, which is important, right? But at the end of the day, you have to enjoy what you're doing. Right? Enjoy the journey. It's unique to you, right? Nobody else can do the journey for you, especially as a visionary, as a founder, as a disruptor, and so on. We can talk about being president, being CEO later on, but as a founder and an aspiring startup founder, you have to understand that this journey is unique to you. right? My journey is different from Ralph's. My journey is different from Lauren's and even Bonnie's and so on, even Alvin's. Everybody's journey is different. Let us not just forget to enjoy the path that we choose. Enjoy it. Whether you end up a successful entrepreneur or a successful startup with this particular one that you started, doesn't matter, right? Because you can always be in this one or the next one or the next one, but each journey, you enjoy that journey. You enjoy the path that you've chosen. And it will develop you into a better and more complete person in the future. So aside from saying, are you sure? Right? I'm going to say, enjoy the journey in the process. Right?
Thanks, Carlo. I think we all agree that we are currently enjoying this journey. That's why we're all in here together. Yeah. So last but not the least, Lawrence, what would be your advice to a budding entrepreneur?
So first of all, I want to apologize. I think my camera just kind of did something strange, but hopefully you can still see me. I definitely want to echo that last statement about enjoying the journey. That's so important. You know, it's very, very hard for anyone to predict the future and the final destination. So enjoy the journey. Like when I look back over all my startups and my experiences with life, I never could have possibly have predicted that one day I would be in the Philippines doing a startup. Okay. I mean, that was like the furthest thing in my mind, but now I'm here. And, part of my journey is I really want to make sure that I enjoy taking advantage of being here, really discovering the food, the culture, making new friends, etc. I hope you can find your real passion, whatever it may be. That is kind of a journey of discovery. It might be something you found out recently, or maybe something you rediscovered from your childhood, that you forgot, and then but it's something that you were passionate about. Because just know that startups take a lot of sacrifice. So, it's got to be something you care deeply about. And I would also recommend that you do talk to your family and friends, because they might think, what's happened to you? You got so intense all of a sudden, and you're so distracted, and you should take the time to explain to them like kind of what you're going through, And then the last bit is just the really practical stuff. I mean, I think a lot of blogs and books go through this, like, make your checklist, do your research about the market, the competition, all the aspects. Really do a lot of research. Keep your notes, as you go along. Find mentors and advisors that you can trust. I really advise you to go through that. It'll save you a lot of pain later on if you start out this way. And then, finally, just enjoy the journey. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Lawrence, Carlo, Ralph, Bonnie. I'm sorry, but I know it's a very interesting. There's a lot more that we can talk about, but our slot is just for an hour and a half, and we can't do overtime. But before we close this discussion, I would like to ask each one of our guests to promote or plug their startups. But I'm gonna start off with Carlo. Carlo has an exciting activity or a big event coming this November, also in time for the Startup Week, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, Carlo, please promote Arise.
Thanks, Alvin. So we'd like to invite startups, Ralph, Lawrence, and even Bonnie. Happy to have you guys participate in our Arise Startup Challenge. It's a national pitching competition, and as I mentioned, one of the things that I'm passionate about is giving equal opportunity to startups from all over the Philippines. So we organized this particular pitching competition just to be able to give chance to everybody, right? And the prizes are very exciting as well. These prizes come from our partners, one of which is inclusion in an accelerator program that we're planning with the Ongpin Angel Investor Corporation. And at the same time, also, we have trips to Balisin for the top 3. So I know everybody needs a break. We also have bundles from our friends from NARC that everybody can enjoy with their organizations, and a whole lot more from other partners that are coming up as well. At the same time, it's a great opportunity to get recognition also. Why? Because we have so many, what do you call this? We have so many media partners that are going to be helping us out, and obviously those who win and those who are included will be getting special mention in our releases. But more importantly, it's all about finding these new companies and putting them on the stage. So happy enough, Ralph, Lawrence, please join us, Alvin also, and Bonnie and Randy. Happy to have you there. Another thing, aside from Arise Startup Challenge, is watch out. We're going to be making announcements to succeeding projects that Startup Village would be launching. I'm not just allowed to share it yet, but obviously one of which is the accelerator, and a lot more different programs. We're launching our next incubation batch. We're already opening our 11th batch of the GIFT, which is our startup program. And also, we have regular pitching activities on a weekly basis every Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's called Breakthrough Online Pitching, right? So happy enough to invite everybody to join us. Check us out on our Facebook page. Just look for Startup Village PH on Facebook. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Carlo. You all got us at Balisin. So maybe for that Balisin trip, we will all be joining.
Yeah.
So yes, startups who are listening and watching us right now, if you all want to go to Balisin, no, I'm just kidding. Please check out Startup Village Facebook page about the Arise competition, and us. Leading with Success is a proud partner, a community partner of Startup Village for that Arise pitching competition, and we'll be also sharing details of the competition on our websites or in social media outfits. So next, Lawrence, do you have anything to plug or promote about My Golana?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is just a message about mental wellness in general. We really encourage everyone, especially during these times, to have an annual mental health checkup, just like you would do your physical checkup and check your blood pressure, your cholesterol, sugar, things like that. People often forget and neglect their mental health. So you can do a free mental health checkup at mygolana.net. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. So for those who would want to get in touch into their mental health, that's mygolana.net. And Ralph?
Yeah. From our side at Senti, if you're still an organization who's still fundering and like figuring out what artificial intelligence is, and you would want to figure out how AI could actually help you speed up operations, especially in a time of pandemic in which you would be needing more manpower and needing more speeding up your operations on your business. So this is where we assist organizations to drive efficiency, leveraging capabilities of artificial intelligence. And one of the products that we just recently launched is Voa. So it's a contact center AI solution that we have been already launched and working with several organizations and enterprises now who have been using those solutions. So if you're keen on exploring collaboration with us and using also our expertise to work together with AI, please extend and go visit our website at senti.ai. Thank you.
So thanks, Ralph. So artificial intelligence, I think if you all see that technology has helped us a lot, especially in times of pandemic. Maybe you can explore Senti and I and how you can work with them. And last but not the least, Bonnie.
Thank you. And I believe it's best that we all had a plug, because for the first time, I've been seeing Ralph for so many years. And the first time I understood what the offer is, and I'm sure everyone who's watching will be able to connect that into, what really can we do with technology. So for Leading with Success, we are currently live in our digital training programs for startup training. If you need help on that, leadership, operational management, please contact Alwin. She's our startup program lead. For any other topic, please contact Randy. He's our managing director. We have a lot of digital topic trainings Lately, we announced it in our Facebook page, Leading with Success in Facebook. And we have our show, Leading Live. We'll definitely have you, Carlo, Ralph, and Lawrence, as a guest for that one of these days. See you there.
Hello, thank you for joining us for our second panel now, which will tackle a good topic. So this is still Founders Tell All, and this is about scaling your startup. Our first guest was a finalist in CNN startup competition, The Final Pitch. She is also, more importantly, the CEO and founder of FH Moms, which is the first and biggest freelancing group for Pinay moms with about 250,000 members nationwide. Wow. Please join me in welcoming the one and only MK Bertulfo.
Hi, Randy. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Thanks, MK. All right, and last but not the least, coming back to us, she is a self-described serial entrepreneur and the CEO and founder of Leading with Success. Please welcome back Miss Bonnie Factor.
Hey, Randy. So, coming back from the first panel and now welcoming my dear friend to the second segment of ours. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, MK.
Thanks, guys. So I'm honored to have you join us for our discussion about scaling. So since this is Founders Tell All, let's get to our first and most obvious question. So before we go in depth into that topic, specifically to MK, might you tell us about your startup journey? How did you come up with the idea? Can you share the origins of how your startup came to be?
FH Mom started 3 years ago in 2017. It's not yet tagged as a startup. It's tagged as a Facebook support group or an online community for work-at-home moms. So when I started it, my intention is just for me to find new friends and support where I could ask questions. But then what happened is that I was the one who gave trainings and learnings to our community. So back then, what I did, I went to different provinces, places here in the Philippines, just to teach our MAME members and to reach out to them, especially those who are in the remote areas. So that was the birth of our online courses. We've been doing it manually. By manually, I mean we create different private support groups or Facebook groups. And then we upload our videos in these groups. It's just this year when we started creating our own platform. So after the online training, what happened? I hired 7 mommy trainers to do the trainings because I can't do or I can teach all the topics that our moms are requesting. And then after that, I see that a lot of my friends who are startups and entrepreneurs has been asking me if I could give them a virtual assistant. So I did. So that was the birth of our recruitment services. We also got a BPO client that hired 500 to 1,000 employees. That was our first client in terms of recruitment. And still, we don't have a solid system now in terms of recruitment, but we do have packages. And then just recently, during the pandemic or the lockdown, we started our computer rent to own program. So I think this will be the start of our e-commerce. So we're starting to come up now with our list of merchandise as well as items that we could sell that will help our moms. So basically, FH Moms now, because we started as an ed tech startup, and now we are more of a one-stop shop platform for the moms to equip them with the online job, the training, and the things that they need to acquire. So people don't know that we're also doing advertising and market research for clients. So we have multiple business models for our community or for our startup.
So just curious, MK, what type of online trainings do you provide? So let's say I'm a mom, which obviously I'm not, but let's say I want to get to know some of your online courses. What are those? Can you give me some examples of those?
So these are the digital skills training that you need to get an online job, such as general virtual assistance, online teaching, customer service, accounting and bookkeeping, social media marketing, mostly non-voice type of skills, because that is perfect for the setup of the moms. but we also offer them skills that they could help them in terms of communications. We're also looking to partner with you guys in leading with success in terms
Sure.
of soft skills. I've been meaning to partner with Mami Boni to help our moms in terms of providing them with the soft skills that they need.
So let's go to Bonnie regarding that. So what type of service can Leading with Success partner with MK and FH Moms?
She mentioned soft skills, and our expertise is on leadership. And I know that a lot of companies are looking for that self leadership, leading the self, because the when you're working in a company or in a remote work, there's this sense that can you communicate to us more assertively what you need. And as Filipinos, we weren't taught to be that. We weren't taught to be assertive. The thing with us Filipinos is that we were told to follow, to obey, and in the corporate world, where your skills are really needed as a virtual assistant or any other, you need to be able to assert yourself as a leader. And I believe that's where Leading with Success can, match, collaborate with FH Moms in terms of the leadership skills that we embody and how they can be more successful in their career, in their remote work.
Awesome, awesome. So since we're talking about scaling, this is a two-part question for both of you. So what does scaling mean to you? And what are the three most important things for you on scaling your startup? Bonnie, you want to start?
Well, for me, it's profit. Number one for me is profit in terms of scaling. So we have our targets. It seems that the money is there. You have witnessed it. It's the money is there. It's coming to us. It's coming to us. We're talking to people, and people are giving us the money. So validation wise, it's there. Number two is, the OKR. We have that, and I really like that. And we just need systems. So those three. So profit
Can
number
you
one.
expound on what OKRs are?
Objective key results, the three priorities that we have at any given time, 3 to 5, so that we don't lose our focus, because there's so many things we can do in this world. And that's where I would like to focus on what do we focus on moment per moment. So that's it. So number one is profit, because if we don't have the cash, then we don't exist. If we're not earning money, then we don't exist. So number one is profit. Number two is OKR. Number three is I mentioned number three earlier. Systems, because that's where we need. How are we going to multiply ourselves? So we need systems. We really need systems. We need to begin, and systems need to be included in our OKR.
That's right. MK, same question. So what are the three most important things for you on scaling your own startup?
Oh, I remember in our first 2 years, it's just me who's handling and managing the community. Now, I guess we have 20 people working in the team now. I already have my partner or our CEO. So we have the core team now. So I'm happy that in terms of our organizational structure, it's really good. I think, yeah, that's the most important thing in terms of scaling the people that will work with the team. Next would be, I don't want to repeat Mami Boni's answer, but yes, I would agree in terms of the profit, the business models. As soon as you grow as a company, definitely you'll be able to identify the revenue models. Because for us, what I did, I just keep on checking which revenue model fits us. So once you were able to identify that, then for sure you'll be able to grow your business more. So aside from revenue, I can say that in terms of partnerships, because before it's just us in the community, meaning to say when I do events, I just ask our members who are online sellers to partner with us. But now we have a lot of brands who are working with us with our virtual events. We also work with international brands and companies. So in terms of partnerships and closing deals internationally, I guess that's one. I'm missing another one. I'm not sure what else can I share, but I think for us, because numbers, it's a number game for us. So for the numbers, we have our community members. We have now 240,000 members. And for our reach, it's not just here in the Philippines, but we also have members in the UAE and in the US. So we were able to tap this OFWs, and we want to continue to tap them so that they could just go back here in the Philippines. So I think that is our end goal, to be able to reach our overseas Filipino workers.
Thanks for that, MK. MK, you touched about community building, right? So how crucial is that within the perspective of the startup? And how did you grow your subscribers or your members to about a quarter of 200, basically about 240,000, right? A quarter of a million members already.
I asked our members how did they found out about us, and they mentioned that they were referred by their family members and friends. So I really think that giving the value that our members is looking for is the main contributor why they love FH Moms, why they love recommending us to the other groups and their friends. So being able to establish the trust to your followers or to your audience is very important. And your other question is?
Now, how did you grow it? And the first question was, how crucial is community building? And I think you've answered it
Okay,
already,
yeah.
so that's
But
okay.
let me just add more to my answer. So, in terms of activities, imagine we have more than 15 webinars per month. We do a lot of campaigns. For example, we're working with celebrity moms right now. We're partnering with them. We have Bianca Gonzalez who will give Wi-Fi or prepaid Wi-Fi units to our members.
Wow.
We have Neri Miranda. So this kind of partnerships in terms of content is a great contribution for the growth of our members. But before that, what we usually do is just face-to-face events and virtual events that our moms love, and giveaways also help because moms as an audience, they really love freebies and giveaways. So we have a lot of activities in the community, and for sure Mame Boni knows that we do a lot of things not just for the moms, because we also have members who are single, and then for their husband we usually ask them to join my husband's community called Pinoy Home-Based Dads. And then just recently we have an activity for the kids. It's FH Kids Bootcamp, where we teach the kids with the skills that they need to enhance. So as you can see, our community is family centric, and it's a community where
I
they
like
could
that.
find all the things that they need, not just for their online job, but for their personal lives as well.
That's right. That's awesome. I like that it's family centric. Okay, let's move on. Next question. There's a thin line between having an idea that you're passionate about and solving your customers' problems. So from your perspective, Bonnie and MK, how did you merge the two to provide a viable business model that caters to both? Bonnie, you want to start?
For me, we're still a work in progress with that. We're continuously validating our business model, especially our tech design. Our tech vision is currently a vision, and there's a need to validate it. The money is there, surprisingly, and you know this. You've had a witness of this. The money is there, as long as you're fearless, as long as you're brave, as long as you're there showing up every day in social media, and Ma'am si MK, alam niya to eh. Basta nasa social media ka lang araw-araw, the money will never run out. The money
Yeah.
will always be there for you. So, and that's what I experience. So now it's how do you further zone in? I leave this question to MK better because she has, for us, it's leadership. Eh. That's what that's the niche. It's leadership through and through because that's something that I'm passionate to solve, to crack, to, to be there for leadership. With Mamshi MK, with her, it's the work from home. It's giving the moms the opportunity to work from home and take care of the kids at the same time. So those two elements. What is your focus? What is your purpose? My purpose is yung sa leadership talaga. Leadership well-being, leadership soft skills, everything leadership. What about you, moms?
For us naman, I just want our members to be successful either in their freelancing career or in terms of entrepreneurship. Because before, what I noticed is that whenever a mom landed an online job, they would start an online business, or they would upgrade to becoming an agency owner or maybe an
Yeah.
e-commerce owner. So after noticing that, because it's also the same path as mine, after being a freelancer, I shifted to becoming a CEO of my own company. So from there, I see that with what I'm experiencing with my path as a mom, it's the same with our members. So I don't have any problem in terms of thinking of projects for my personal or for my startup, because it's just the same. So I really think that having this kind of mindset where helping moms to be successful means also helping their family, especially their kids, because whatever a mom learns, definitely they will be able to teach that to their kids. So I have that mindset that I share with our moms, for them to be generous in terms of sharing whatever blessings they receive from our community. So that's for me.
Thanks for that, MK. Okay. Final two questions. So the first one is, how long did it take you to perfect your startup formula? What processes and values did you take to replicate your success consistently? What are the different do's and don'ts? MK, you want to start?
Yeah. For me, whichever works for me in terms of strategies and all that, I make sure that my team members, because some of my team members are first timer in terms of the work from home setup. So I usually share my best practices to them, and I'm very patient in terms of passing all my ideas to them. So another thing is that I make sure that the community is involved. I give them all the information that they need so that they could visualize my vision, because handling or managing a community this huge is not easy.
That's right.
So I wanted to make sure that everyone is aligned with my vision, because I think that is the most common problem of a lot of startup founders, that they're only the ones who understands their products or services. So as per my strategy, I always make sure that everyone is aligned.
Bonnie?
For me, it's just show up. Show up, show up every day. Whatever is happening, just show up. It may fail, it may fly, but as long as you're showing up, you're going to move forward. Just show up. That's just what I have for us, because we're still perfecting and we're still navigating. Leading with success is 1 year. It's just 1 year. We're going to have our birthday this December. So whatever I had learned from Easy Fulfill before, that's just it. It's just to show up. Just show up every day. Just show up whatever is happening. Just show up, just as long as you're
right.
there. Mhm.
Thanks for that, Bonnie. My last one is, what's your final piece of advice to all the budding startup entrepreneurs on how they can scale their businesses better? Bonnie, you want to start here?
Community, build a list. Who are your clients? I have learned this from Ma'am MK. She's a very good friend of mine. We started the same time when I started with Easy Fulfill back then. It was her community I first tapped into when we started doing our live Q&As back then for Easy Fulfill. So MK and I go way back. I'm very happy what she reached right now. And it's with continuous daily showing up. I love that about her. So passing this on to her, Randy. Go, Mom.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, to all the startups watching, if you've heard about the word validation, because when I started FH Moms, I don't know that word. But the thing here is that I've been doing validating of ideas since day one, because I love validation. I love doing things fast. I love testing a lot of projects, a lot of strategies. So I highly suggest that before you come up with a technology, make sure to validate your idea or your business model.
All right. Thanks for that, MK and Bonnie. So before we say our goodbyes, I'd give you guys the opportunity to promote or plug or invite your viewers or maybe future followers on where they can find you, where they can check you out. Go ahead, MK.
To all the startups that are watching right now, I'd like to invite you to be our partners because we do a lot of projects. So for sure, there's one project that we could work on. We're actually looking for startups that focus on e-commerce because we're launching ours. So maybe we could tie up. If you are a startup that is looking to grow your team, I hope you could hire from Filipino home-based moms. I have a few startup friends who hire from us and they are very happy with their virtual assistant. So you can just email us at hiring@fhmoms.com. And if you're interested to become a freelancer or a work from home mom or dad or whatever, I hope you can join our community so that you could get a support. I have this startup friend who have to close her startup because it's in travel business. So she asked help from our community. She just watched our webinars and now she's happy working from home. So I really hope you can visit our website. It's fhmoms.com and you can follow us in our social media accounts. Just search for FH Moms.
Thanks, MK. Bonnie.
Thank you for joining our community event for the Philippine Startup Week. This is Leading with Success community event. If your company needs an online training needs, please go visit our Facebook page and send us a message. Randy and I will be more than willing to help you out.
Thanks for that. So before that, I'd like to thank our sponsors as well, Kubo, DOST, and DICT, and DTI. So on behalf of MK from FH Moms and Bonnie from Leading with Success, I am Randy, and thank you all for joining us on this segment about scaling, right? Thank you all and see you soon.